You're listening to the Goggler Podcast with me, Uma. Joining me on the show today is Jeff Aro. He is a Hollywood stunt coordinator whose credits include, wait for it, Yellow Jackets, The Man in the High Castle, Lost in Space, Arrow, The Flash, DC's Legends of Tomorrow. The list goes on and on. He's here today to talk to us about the work he's done on Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender. Oh, there we go. Okay, there we go. Hey,
Hi,
Jeff, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Is that a real background? Are you actually in a stunt room?
Welcome to my living room. So, when you build your own house, you're allowed to do what you like. So, we have a dojo for a living room and a trampoline in the back there, and that's our bedroom.
Oh, amazing. See, when you do what you do, then you get to build cool things like this. This is very cool, Jeff. Let me start by saying we don't get a chance to speak to many stunt coordinators. So I want to lead with just a couple of basic questions. Your experience in the industry goes back about 20 years now.
Doesn't time fly? Isn't that wild?
There we go. I'm sorry to point that out.
No, thanks.
So before we get into Avatar, just very quickly, what got you into the business?
I mean, I grew up on Jackie Chan and Jet Li movies.
Same here.
Yeah, no, like actually, so my family is Tangkat and Johor Bahru. Yeah, I
What?
got family in KL. So actually, my first introduction to Once Upon a Time in China was when I was like staying with my grandparents in Tangkat. So
Oh, that's amazing.
yeah, I mean, like because I grew up doing that, it was always put in the back of my head, and then I grew up doing martial arts, like from when I was 6. I was doing karate with my dad, and then I had got 2 different black belts in Kuk Soo Won and Taekwondo. As soon as I went to university, I actually spent more time taking different martial arts than I did in my university classes. So when I discovered that stunts was a job, I just learned everything I could about it, and kind of became a jack of all trades. So, dirt bikes and aerial wires, Hong Kong style aerial, like that became my element. And I also started training in dance. And so
Right.
one of the things that set me apart from some of the people that were my colleagues was that having the two, a dancer remembers thousands of moves of choreography. So remembering 8 moves, fight beats was kind of easy.
Yeah.
That art in itself was more about physical storytelling. So when I combined the two, I kind of found myself in a unique situation. It's kind of how I train cast. Like I use dance techniques to teach fight moves.
It's a little similar to me in the sense that when I discovered that you could watch movies for a living, I was like, hey, this is a
Hey,
thing.
yeah, it's a thing.
Okay, so with something like Avatar, and forgive me if this is a silly question, but how is working with kids different from working with grown-ups? Because I'm assuming that kid Uma would be like, oh, let me try that. I want to do that. But I'm assuming they can, right?
So here's the thing, like with hard work and talent, like time, anything is possible. When it comes to combining physical action with VFX, we can really accomplish like incredible things. Now, one of our goals with Avatar was to make sure that we could get our cast doing as much as possible. So we started their training
Right.
6 weeks out. We actually even started with video email training. We were sending them training clips. Here's waterbending. Here's earthbending. Just giving them the shape of things. So when they arrive, we could hit the ground running, knowing that even though there was time, there wasn't enough time. Part of our workflow is to communicate things as clear as possible. So we do previs, we shoot the sequences, we try to understand what the creatives are, because you can say a thing 100 different ways and it can be
Right.
interpreted 1,000 different ways. But when we start seeing them, it really helps just bring everything into something that people can digest. And then, oh, okay, you do that part, we'll train you. You don't need to know the whole language of Latin. You just need to know this element of it. And we'll be there to help coach you. So
It's kind of like when you get a Hollywood actor to do Japanese for a certain part, for example, they're learning it phonetically, they're learning just what they need to know.
yes and no, like we wanted to make sure that the cast actually could help participate in curating this. So we taught them all of the bending. And because they're young people, they were willing to work hard, they were enthusiastic. One of the challenges of working with young people is sometimes they don't know where their limits are. So
They can do anything, right? Yeah.
I get it, because that's how I grew up. Okay, I want to jump off this. I want to be a young stuntman. All right, throw me down the stairs, put me in coach. But with a performer like Gordon, this is what's important. We need to make sure that you have enough energy to emote those really powerful scenes. So we might line things up with your stunt double. We're going to use, this is on their shoulder, on their back, save it. I know, like, be here, be present, so that you can help with your scene partner's lines, but like conserve your energy. So that's really, when it comes to working with young people, it's making sure that they don't fatigue, because that's where injury happens.
I'm assuming the cartoon provided a fantastic template for you to craft completely different stunt choreographies for every single type of bending. Like,
Yes.
as a layman, I could see different moves when I was watching the show, but I'm assuming it's a lot more intricate than that.
I think you'll be pleased. If you're a fan of Avatar, I think you'll be pleased with some of the choices that we made. We took the time to figure out which sequences were not in the animated series, and we made sure that we put time and effort into telling those stories and shaping them so they fit into the universe. But we also took the time to figure out, like, if I was like the ultimate fan of Avatar, what do I want to see is in this?
Yeah.
So like when you watch Omashu, when you travel through that world, I feel like you'll see things that are familiar. When you see the blue spirit sequence, we made an effort to make sure that I would take screen grabs. I'm like, we should reproduce this because we can, and these guys are such talented athletes that we'll be able to get these moments with them. And I hope that audiences really appreciate those moments, because they were fun for us.
Given what you've been saying so far, I'm assuming that you're working a lot more with actors these days. Now, following the success of things like John Wick and Extraction, are you finding that more and more actors want to do their own stunt work? Has that become a thing?
I think so. So it's kind of a mixed bag, because when it comes to young people, absolutely, they always wanted to be the young, and you have to rein them in a little bit and make sure you explain, like, we're here for safe workflow. There is definitely a desire to do it, but sometimes at the end of the day, we want to make sure people get home safely. So it's a nice balance. And what we do early is we do a boot camp so that we can speak the same language. So there's a shorthand. Because again, at the end of the day, if people don't care about the character because we fatigue them doing a cool backflip, hold on a second, we need you to say Sky Bison, all of those moments. Wow, when I watch that trailer, I'm so excited because he makes such great choices. And if I've seen Gordon when he's tired, and sometimes you need food, and you just, as a young person, sometimes you get so excited you don't know how to manage those limits. So that's what we aim to do, is to make sure that we're good coaches.
Because you pointed something out, and it's something I think the audience forgets, especially when actors are doing their own stunt work. That is important. And when you are shooting a stunt person, you're shooting them from strange angles. You're not necessarily seeing the acting per se. And so suddenly all of that comes into play, and so much more is expected from the actor. Has that affected production time in any way? Because now your actors have to do so much more.
In some ways,
I could be getting this wrong. I mean,
No,
I'm
no.
assuming in my head that in the past they were just like, all right, I'm going to sit down while you do your stuff.
If we have enough prep, and we have enough time to prepare the actor to have the stamina to be able to deliver those, you can create these incredible one-shot sequences that have these little stitching moments. That's what you're seeing when you're watching Extraction, like some really incredible hard work on everyone's side, like camera included. When you're watching here, absolutely, the blue spirit, that is Dallas, even though it's a mask. He makes incredible choices. And absolutely, in those scenarios where the actors and actresses are willing to put the time in, it absolutely expedites the process.
With Avatar in particular, what is one of the most complex things that you had to translate? Because obviously with animation, it's a lot easier. You can do some zany things.
I would say Appa.
Of course.
Only because there was a lot of imagination that had to happen. There was a workflow. We were aiming to get something that felt real, so the camera needed to move around it. And it's those things that can become pedestrian, like, oh, you're just sitting in a thing. But don't forget, we're like 12 feet up on a rig that's moving and shaking. So coming up
Right.
with that kind of a workflow, like my primary function is safe workflow, particularly for cast. So it's those ones that make me sweat because
Oh, wow.
it's become so easy to become complacent about those things, especially when you do it throughout a season. It's that we make an effort to make sure that put your seatbelts on, make sure we get through the season safely.
Before we did the junkets, before speaking to you and before speaking to some of the actors as well, we had those preview episodes. And I think over the years of doing this, one of the great things about the preview episodes is you get to see some of the green screen stuff because it's not quite finished. And for me, it doesn't ruin the magic. For me, it actually enhances it because I see what the actors are going through and it gives me a new appreciation for the things they have to do. Now, I understand that everything and anything can be dangerous, but I guess my question for you is where are we right now with mitigating that danger? Is anything still truly dangerous, or have we reached a point where you're like, I'm comfortable with people doing this?
It is largely an evaluation that happens with us and our stunt team. Again, we always make sure that we have a good stunt double there to make sure that the majority of risk happens in the R&D, in the research and development of a sequence. So we do our best to mitigate risk by making sure there's clear communication with the creatives so that they like what they're going to see, that we give the challenging bits. And a lot of times it's a magic trick. Like if you watch a punch, and it's like it's a miss, we try to get as many of those little details sorted out and prep as possible because that makes the day go much quicker and much more safely. When it comes to doing like the big spectacle stunts,
Yeah.
like those ones are challenging because if you're a talented human that's willing to put the time, like Tom Cruise is showing that you can jump a motorcycle off a cliff.
I feel like he's a bad example,
Yeah,
man.
that would make me sweat as a stunt coordinator. Wade Eastwood is an incredibly cool cat. My goal is to examine story, make sure we're making the strongest choice possible, and at the end of the day, that we're all getting home safely. It's a fun job. It is interesting, and especially because technology has helped us. But I think people can really tell the difference between when it's like VFX is such a delicate balance. Like if that's why we work with people like Jabbar Rajani. Like he's amazing because he's so collaborative. Because if we can deliver more physically, it helps. And then even if we're creating references, it helps. It helps the artists on the other side. So we are in an interesting time, but I don't think a project like Avatar: The Last Airbender, like I think we're in the right time to be doing a project like this.
And also, I think the interesting thing about something like this is we're also at a time when the audience notices and the audience knows, right? And I think they know when an actor is doing his or her own thing and they can see it on screen. People seem to be a lot more informed these days. And I think, when you guys do what you do from the episodes I've seen, it looks seamless. It looks very, very cool. I've got time for one more question, just very quickly. I think just every time I speak to someone who does this kind of work, I'm curious as to what is like the one or two things that you think the general audience doesn't know about the work that you do that you wish they would know?
What is the one thing that we wish the general audience would know or appreciate?
Like
Is that
some random like some random assumption that people make, and you're like, that's not how it works, you idiot.
that
And then you're
stunt
like going
people
on the
are
internet and
people
yeah,
too.
exactly. You're ready to troll someone on the internet and you're like, nope, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna do it this time.
Yeah, totally. If you want to make a stunt person nervous, it's not throwing them down the stairs. It's not lighting them on fire, hitting their car. It's asking them to speak.
You're a natural, man. It's like you do this all the time.
Well, I enjoy, you know what we're talking about, wuxia cinema, like kung fu. I grew up on this, and I think I'm so excited to share this with my family. My boys, I got two young boys, and they need kung fu in their life. So I get quite excited about talking about this because I grew up on it.
Favorite Jackie Chan movie? Like I love them all, but Police Story 3 is close to my heart because it was shot in KL. And
Yeah.
every time I watch that movie, I'm like, I've never seen
familiar.
Kuala Lumpur like this.
Mine would be Fearless Hyena. If you haven't seen it, it is
I have.
Oh, so good. It's a classic because like one of my favorite characters in Avatar: The Last Airbender is Ian. Ian like embodies this comedic time, and like it's so important to laugh. Like that's what I really like about this project. It's like it's the world is at stake. There's so much that's going on, but there's time to laugh. It's so good.
Jeff, thank you so much for your time. This has been an absolute pleasure, and congratulations on the work you do. It's amazing.
Much appreciated.
That was Jeff Aro. He was the stunt coordinator on Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender. Reach out and let us know what you thought of the brand new live action adaptation. All of our social media feeds are GogglerMY. You can also email us on podcast@goggler.my or send us a WhatsApp on the Goggler hotline 012-524-5208. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Goggler Podcast.